The night the elders surrounded her, the barn door stood wide, and the baby's cry cut sharp through the dark. She clutched the small bundle to her chest, straw clinging to her dress, heart pounding so loud it almost drowned the sound. Outside, lanterns swung in calloused hands, their glow spilling long shadows over the dirt yard. The men who came toward her weren't strangers. They'd seen her born, watched her grow, and branded her as trouble before she'd even had a chance to prove them wrong. And now, with the baby's wail carrying into the night, they weren't just coming to question, they were coming to decide. How she ended up there, barefoot in a barn, holding a child that wasn't hers, was a story no one in the village could have guessed. Least of all her. Her name was Adeline. Folks in the valley called her Addie, when they called her anything at all. A slip of a black girl, not yet 20, sharp-eyed and stubborn, with a way of holding silence until others squirmed. She lived at the edge of the settlement, in a one-room shack, left behind by her mother before sickness carried her off. No father had ever been named. No kin claimed her. She survived by taking work no one else wanted, mucking stalls, hauling water, sewing rips into coats until her fingers bled. The elders never trusted her. Maybe because she had no family, no man to answer for her. Maybe because she asked too many questions and lowered her eyes for no one. Or maybe because she reminded them of what they wanted to forget. That freedom didn't always come with welcome, and a black girl without ties was a problem nobody wanted to solve. But Addie had learned to walk careful. She didn't stir trouble, didn't gossip, didn't beg favors. She spoke plain. If she worked hard. That was enough to keep her fed, but never enough to erase suspicion. It was late summer when she heard it the first time, a faint, weak cry carried on the wind. Addie had been out at the creek rinsing a pail when the sound floated across the fields. She thought it was an animal at first, maybe a fox kit lost from its den. But as she listened, the sound rose thin and sharp, cutting past the crickets and the rustle of cottonwood leaves. A baby. Her stomach knotted. No family nearby had a child so young. The Johnsons' boy was 2 and loud enough to shake rafters. The Miller twins were well past weaning. This cry was different, fragile, desperate. She followed the sound, bare feet quick on the dusty path, until she came to the old barn. Everyone in the valley knew it, half-rotted, left behind by a family who'd gone west years back. The place was thought to be haunted, or cursed, depending on who you asked. No one kept stock there anymore. No one even bothered to tear it down. The crying grew louder as she pushed the warped door aside. Inside, dust floated like ghosts in the shaft of moonlight. The smell of old hay and mildness stung her nose, and in the corner, wrapped in a thin blanket, lay the child. Addie froze, her breath caught in her chest. The baby's face was red, its fists no bigger than walnuts, its cries breaking into hiccups. She dropped to her knees before she knew what she was doing. "Lord have mercy," she whispered, though she hadn't prayed in years. No note, no basket, no sign of who had left it there. Just the baby, alone. She could have walked away. That thought burned in her mind as she rocked back on her heels. If she left now, nobody would ever know she'd been here. By morning, someone else might stumble across the child, someone with a name that carried weight, someone the elders would believe. But she also knew the truth. Out here, a night alone could mean death. Coyotes prowled the fields, rats skittered through the hay. The air turned cold before dawn. A baby this small wouldn't last till sunrise. Her hands shook as she lifted the bundle. It weighed almost nothing. The tiny head nestled under her chin, the cry softening to a whimper. "Easy now," she murmured. Her voice broke. "I got you." With that, the choice was made. By morning, word had already spread. No one could say how the valley thrived on rumor more than we. Addie had been seen walking back to her shack. They said carrying something close. She'd been heard singing soft in the night, a lullaby too tender for a girl who claimed no kin. When the elders met that dawn, they didn't call her to explain. They simply came. Lanterns swayed as boots crunched in the dirt. 5 men, broad-shouldered and gray-haired, faces weathered by sun and suspicion. They didn't come angry, not yet, but neither did they come gentle. "Addie," one called, his voice rough as gravel. "Step on out." She clutched the child tighter, The baby stirred, fussing. The sound seemed to sharpen every gaze fixed on her. "What you got there?" another asked. His tone wasn't curious. It was accusing. Addie's throat was dry. She could feel the weight of the whole valley pressing in. Every whisper, every glance that had ever doubted her. This wasn't just about a baby. This was about whether she had the right to hold it. She stood in the barn doorway, barefoot in the straw, the child pressed against her chest. The elders spread around her in a half circle, lanterns glowing, shadows long. Behind them, the first pale streaks of dawn crept across the horizon. Addie knew what they were thinking. A girl like her couldn't be trusted with a child. A girl like her must have done something, stolen it. Maybe, or worse. The barn itself was damning. Who else would bring life into a place marked by death? But none of them knew the truth. Not yet. Addie set her jaw, heart racing, every instinct screaming to run. But her feet stayed planted. She felt the baby's breath against her skin, small and steady, a reminder of the promise she'd made. If she gave the child up, they'd never believe her. If she held on, they might take it by force. Either way, dawn was coming, and with it a reckoning. What none of the elders knew, what Addie herself couldn't yet guess, was that the baby in her arms carried a secret bigger than any of them. A secret that would split the valley down its spine and turn neighbor against neighbor before the week was out. And it all began with the single question hanging in the air that morning. "Addie," the eldest demanded, voice sharp with judgment, "whose child is that?" Addie's lips parted, but no sound came. The baby stirred, letting out a soft whimper that seemed louder than any shout. The elders leaned in, their lanterns casting jittering light across their hard faces. Every wrinkle looked carved from judgment, every eye sharp with suspicion. Addie knew that if she spoke too soon, too soft, or too wrong, she'd be branded a liar before she got the words out. It was old Caleb who spoke first, the oldest among them, his voice slow but cold. "Never did trust you, girl. Always skulking about, asking questions, hiding things. You expect us to believe you just found it." Addie tightened her grip around the baby. She could feel the heat of their stares, as sharp as pitchfork tines. "I ain't lying," she said, voice steadier than she felt. "The child was alone. In the barn. I couldn't leave it." A scoff came from Samuel Pierce, his lantern swinging. "Or maybe you couldn't hide it quick enough. Who's the father, Addie? Who you been meeting in secret?" The words stung more than the suspicion. She had no lover, no sweetheart, no trysts in the fields. But she also knew that denying too much, too hard, could make her look guilty all the same. The baby whimpered again, as though sensing the storm. Behind the elders, shadows moved. Other villagers were creeping closer, drawn by the commotion. Women in bonnets, children rubbing sleep from their eyes, men with belts half buckled and hair sticking out wild. The whole valley would be awake soon, and once a crowd formed, rumors would spread faster than fire through dry grass. Addie's stomach twisted. Once the story left her lips, it would no longer belong to her. It would belong to the whispers. And whispers could kill faster than bullets. She licked her dry lips. "The baby's not mine. That's the truth. Someone left it there. I heard it crying. If I hadn't gone, it'd be dead by now." For a moment, silence. Then another elder, Jebediah Crane, spoke low. "And why would anyone leave a child for you to find?" The question wasn't meant for an answer. It was meant to plant doubt. And judging by the muttering behind him, it worked. But not every face was hard. Among the crowd, Addie spotted Ruth Miller, the midwife, a widow who'd birthed half the valley's children. Ruth's lined face softened as she peered at the bundle. "Let me see the babe," she said, stepping forward. The elders shifted but didn't stop her. Ruth's authority in matters of life and death was older than any man's word. She reached out, and Addie reluctantly loosened her hold just enough for Ruth to peek beneath the blanket. Ruth gasped softly. "This child ain't more than 3 days old. Who would abandon something so small?" The elders muttered, but Addie caught the flicker of unease in their eye. A baby this young meant danger for someone, maybe a hidden birth, maybe a scandal waiting to burst. In a place where everyone claimed to know everyone's business, the mystery was almost worse than a crime. Ruth looked at Addie then, her voice low enough for only a few to hear. "You did right not leaving it, child. Whatever they say, remember that. The words landed like a lifeline, but lifelines could be cut. Samuel Pierce sneered. Or maybe she staged the whole thing. A bastard child hidden away until it couldn't be hid no longer. What better story than to claim she found it in the night? The crowd buzzed at that, whispers growing louder. Addie's heart kicked hard. She raised her chin. I don't care if you believe me. I know what I heard. I know what I found. But already, seeds of doubt were sprouting in every eye around her. And worse, she realized that whoever had left the baby might be standing right there among them, silent, letting the blame shift to her. A sudden movement at the edge of the crowd caught her eye. A figure half hidden in the shadows near the fence, thin, hunched, watching. When Addie's gaze snapped toward him, he turned quickly, vanishing behind the oak trees. Her stomach flipped. She recognized the gait, the crooked shoulder. Eli Hop, a boy barely older than her, known for drinking too much and keeping too many secrets. Did he know something? Was he the one who left the baby? She opened her mouth to speak his name, but the elders pressed in before she could. Enough of this, Caleb growled. We can't stand here all morning debating lies. The child needs a home, a proper one. Not the shack of a girl with no kin, no husband, and no means. Addie's throat tightened. They meant to take the baby. You can't, she said, stepping back. It'll die without someone to feed it through the night. I can keep it safe till you know whose it is. Samuel's eyes narrowed. Or you'll run off with it. Maybe you think if you keep it long enough, folks'll start to believe it's yours to claim. Addie's chest burned with fury. If it was mine, don't you think I'd have hidden it better than this? The words slipped out sharp, too sharp. The elders stiffened. The crowd hissed with mutters. Girl, Caleb said, you're walking a dangerous path. Before the elders could press further, Ruth Miller stepped forward again, holding up a weathered hand. Let the girl keep the child one night, she said firmly. It's too small to be passed from arm to arm like a sack of grain. If we want answers, they'll come soon enough. A secret this big can't stay buried long. The elders balked, but no one dared challenge Ruth outright. Not when it came to life and death. Caleb's jaw worked. Finally, he spat into the dirt. One night. That's all. Come dawn tomorrow, the council decide. And you'd best pray, Addie, that truth comes with it. The crowd began to disperse, murmuring, though suspicion still lingered like smoke. The elders turned away, lanterns bobbing back toward the settlement. Only Ruth stayed behind, resting a hand on Addie's shoulder. You be careful, child. There's more to this than meets the eye, and until it comes to light, you're the one they'll point at. Addie nodded, throat too tight for words. The baby stirred, tiny fists trembling against the blanket. Its cry rose again, thin, haunting, full of need. And in that sound, Addie felt the weight of something she couldn't name. Not just survival, not just scandal, something larger, pressing against the valley like a storm waiting to break. That night, as Addie rocked the baby in the dim glow of her shack, she heard footsteps outside, slow, deliberate, circling, and then, a whisper through the crack of the door, so faint, she almost thought she dreamed it. Don't tell them the truth, or you'll end up in the ground beside it. Addie sat frozen, back pressed against the wall of her shack, the baby tucked close against her chest. The whisper still rang in her ears. Don't tell them the truth, or you'll end up in the ground beside it. The night outside was silent again, too silent. No crickets, no owls, just the faint creak of wood in the baby's breathing. Whoever had circled her shack had melted back into the darkness. She wanted to believe it was a trick of her mind, some echo of fear. But she knew better. Someone out there wanted the secret buried. Sleep never came. Addie stayed awake, rocking the baby until dawn, listening for every footstep, every breath of wind against the shack. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her mind raced harder. Who had left the baby? Who wanted her side? Her thoughts kept circling back to Eli Harper. She'd seen him slink away at the barn. He'd always carried trouble in his bones. Son of a drunk, known for sneaking into things that weren't his. But was he capable of this? And if the child was his, whose blood ran in its veins alongside his, She looked down at the baby's small face. Skin pale, almost too pale for the valley's sun. A shock of dark hair, plastered against its head. Eyes still closed in uneasy sleep. It could belong to anyone. That was the danger. By morning, word of the whisper had already reached her ears through Ruth. The widow had come by at first light, basket in hand. "You're being watched, Addie," Ruth said softly, stepping into the shack. "Someone's stirring the pot, making sure you're the one boiling in it." Addie's hands trembled as she adjusted the blanket around the child. "They came in the night, told me to keep quiet, but I don't even know what truth they think I got." Ruth studied her, eyes sharp. "Then that's what makes you dangerous. You hold a mystery, girl, and mysteries scare folk more than devils." Before Addie could answer, heavy boots thudded outside. The door creaked open without a knock. The elders, Caleb, Samuel, and Jebediah, stepped inside, the air thickening with their presence. Ruth stiffened but didn't move aside. Caleb spoke first. "We said one night, the sun's up, time to hand it over." Addie's arms tightened instinctively around the baby. "You can't. It's too weak to be passed around. Let me." "Girl," Samuel cut in, his voice sharp. "You ain't fit. You got no family, no husband, no mean. You think the valley will risk a babe's life on your word alone?" Addie swallowed hard. "I found it. I saved it. Doesn't that count for something?" Silence stretched. Then Ruth stepped forward, chin raised. "She's right. If not for her, we'd be burying this child instead of arguing over it." "You can't erase that, Samuel Pierce." Samuel's face reddened, but Caleb held up a hand. "Enough. We'll put it to council tonight. Till then, the child stays where it is. But hear this, Addie. If we find you've lied, if we find you've hidden sin under your roof, no hand on this earth will shield you." They turned and left, boots crunching in the dirt. Addie sagged, relief mixed with dread. Tonight. Everything came down to tonight. By midday, Addie heard another knock. This one softer, hesitant. When she cracked the door, Eli Harper stood there. His crooked shoulder leaned against the frame, eyes darting nervously. "Can I come in?" he asked. Every instinct screamed no, but behind him, curious faces already watched from the road. If she refused, it would look worse. She stepped aside. Eli shuffled in, smelling of sweat and stale liquor. His eyes landed on the baby, and something flickered there. Guilt, fear, recognition. Addie couldn't tell which. "You seen me last night," he muttered. "At the barn." "I did," Addie said. Her voice was flat, steady. "Why were you there?" He ran a hand through his hair, trembling. "Ain't what it looked like. I didn't put that babe there. I swear it." "Then why sneak off?" His jaw clenched. "'Cause I know who did." The air thickened. Addie's breath caught. "Then tell me," she whispered. Eli's eyes darted to the window, to the baby, to Ruth's empty chair she'd left not long before. Finally, he leaned close, voice shaking. "It ain't yours to carry, Addie. You speak it, you're done for. Same as the babe's mama, same as me if they find out I told." Her heart thumped. "Whose child is it, Eli?" He opened his mouth, then stopped. His face went pale. Outside, a shadow moved across the window. Someone was listening. Eli's eyes went wide. "I can't. Not here. Not now." He bolted for the door before she could stop him, vanishing into the glare of noon. That night, Addie barely had time to catch her breath before another visitor came. Not Ruth, not Eli. Samuel Pierce. Alone. He pushed the door open without waiting, eyes gleaming hard. "You'd do well to hand that child over tonight without a word," he said, voice low. "Make it easy. Say you lied. Say you were scared. Walk away." Addie's hands curled into fists. "And if I don't?" Samuel stepped closer, lowering his voice to a hiss. "Then you'll learn what it means to cross this valley's will. We buried folk for less." The baby stirred in her arms, a thin cry breaking the silence. Samuel's eyes flicked to it, cold and calculating, before he turned and left. Ruth returned soon after, finding Addie, shaken. The widow pressed her hand gently on Addie's arm. "They'll try to scare you silent," Ruth said. "Or worse, but you hold fast, That child's life depends on it, and so might your own soul. Addie looked down at the baby, its tiny fingers clutching the blanket. She'd never felt so small, so outnumbered, and yet, a fire burned in her chest. If they wanted her cowed, they'd have to break her first. When night fell and the council gathered, Addie walked into the meeting hall with the baby in her arms. Every face in the valley was there, every eye fixed on her, and before she could speak, the door slammed open behind her. Eli Harper stumbling in, blood on his shirt, gasping words that would change everything. They know whose child it is, and they're coming to kill her before anyone can prove it. The canal house loomed like a tomb at the edge of the marsh, its stone walls wet with moss, its roof sagging under years of storms. Addie had never set foot in it before, though she'd heard the stories, runaway men hiding there, bootleggers keeping their barrels cold in the floor. Tonight it would have to be something else, a last chance. They stumbled inside, Ruth dragging Lydia's weak frame over the threshold, Eli clutching his side, Addie holding the baby tight as though the world might tear it from her arms if she let go. The door shut with a groan. Inside, the dark was heavy, thick with damp. The air tasted of rust and old secrets. And outside, voices, hooves in the mud, the slow, steady crunch of boots. Samuel Pierce's drawl slid through the cracks like smoke. "Even ladies, I reckon you're in. Don't fret, we ain't come to spill blood, not unless you make." The torchlight outside flickered orange against the narrow slats of the shuttered window. Dilgan's laugh followed, thin and sharp. Another voice muttered, then fell quiet. Addie pressed her back to the wall, heart hammering so loud she feared the baby would pick it up and echo it. Ruth met her eyes in the dark, calm as ever, but her hand was firm on the kitchen knife she'd carried from her cabin. Eli slumped against the stone, breath shallow. "He don't want to talk," he rasped. "He wants the child buried deeper than Lydia's shame." Addie looked down at the baby, asleep despite the danger, and something in her stiffened. "Then he'll have to bury me too." From the corner, Lydia whispered, voice thin with fever, "Don't let him twist it. The child's mine, but it's not his crime to cover. It's his hate. He'd rather choke me silent than let the valley know I loved a man who wasn't white, wasn't theirs." Her eyes glistened in the dark. "If he kills me, he kills the truth. If he kills the babe, he kills proof. That's all he cares for." Ruth crouched beside her, pressing a cool cloth to her brow. "Then we hold till dawn. Once the valley wakes, he won't risk it in daylight. He thrives in shadows." But Addie knew shadows could stretch long. A boot thudded against the door, hard enough to rattle the hinges, not enough to break them. Testing. "Last chance," Samuel called. "Hand it over, Addie. You've stirred this valley long enough. You ain't got kin, ain't got a claim. You hand that bastard child to me and you'll walk away. Breathe. Refuse. The pause stretched, and you'll join the ghosts in this swamp." The baby stirred, a soft cry slipping from its lips. Addie rocked it, murmuring, but the sound carried. Samuel chuckled low outside. "There now, I hear him. Frail little thing, don't belong in your arms." Addie's jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Eli pushed himself upright, face pale in the torchlight leaking through the cracks. "Let me go out," he whispered. "I'll draw 'em off. Buy time." Addie grabbed his sleeve. "They'll cut you down before you take 10 steps. He smiled weak, teeth stained red from biting back the pain. "Maybe, but they already think me half dead. Might as well make it mean something." Ruth shook her head sharply. "You leave this house, boy, you feed them proof. You're the scapegoat they want. They'll say you fathered the child, killed the mama, and tried to hide the rest. No, you stay." Eli sank back, breath ragged. Addie pressed a rag to his side, blood seeping warm against her hand. The house smelled of iron now. The second kick shook the whole frame. The baby cried harder, high-pitched and urgent. Addie's chest ached with it. "Time's up," Samuel barked. "One more chance, girl." Addie's voice broke free before she thought. "You'll never have him." The silence that followed was heavier than the swamp air. Then Samuel's laugh, slow and ugly. "Stubborn as your mama was. And look what it brought her." The words struck like a whip. Addie's vision blurred. Her mother taken by sickness, buried without him or kin. Had Samuel been part of that too? The door shuddered under another blow. Ruth rose, knife in her hand, back straight as a post. They'll break it soon. We need a plan. Addie swallowed hard. There's no back door. No, Ruth said. But there's stone, thick walls. We make 'em bleed for every inch. Lydia's weak voice cut in. You can't fight them all. Better to carry word to Caleb. He'll listen if you reach him. Addie looked from Ruth to Lydia to Eli. Each face worn, afraid, but holding on, and the baby warm against her, unaware of the storm outside. They won't let us walk out, Addie whispered. Then we don't walk, Ruth said. We wait till dawn, or till one of us runs faster than their lies. The door splintered at the frame. A torch flared outside, smoke seeping in. Shadows loomed through the crack. Addie's heart slammed. She tucked the baby deeper in her shawl, whispering, "Hush, hush, I got you." A voice she didn't expect rang from outside. Caleb's. Samuel Pierce, stand down. The blows stopped. Murmurs rose. Caleb again. You bring fire to the marsh. You bring it to us all. You'll answer before the council if harm's done here. Addie sagged against the wall, relief spilling quick. Too quick. Samuel's reply came sharp. This ain't council business. This is sin to be buried. You'd shield a liar over the valley's name. The men outside argued. Voices clashed. Caleb's firm. Samuel's venomous. Ruth's eyes met Addie's. We've got one chance. Caleb's presence buys us it. Addie's breath came quick. She could step out now, risk everything. Throw the truth in the open with Caleb to witness, or stay, wait, and pray Samuel didn't wrest control before dawn. The baby whimpered again, tiny fists curling. Addie kissed its head, heart breaking. What do we do? She whispered. Ruth's voice was steady. You decide, Addie. You found him. You carried him. Now you carry the truth. But once it leaves your mouth, there's no taking it back. The room held its breath. Outside, the torches flared brighter. The argument climbing. Dawn was hours away. Addie closed her eyes. She saw her mother's face, worn but fierce. She saw the valley's suspicion. She saw Lydia, broken but unbowed. She saw the child, innocent, fragile, waiting. And she knew. Addie rose to her feet, baby tight in her arms. She stepped toward the splintered door, as Caleb's voice rose again outside. Open it, she said to Ruth. Ruth's eyes widened. Addie, open it, Addie repeated. If this valley wants truth, they'll hear it from me. And as Ruth's hand went to the latch, the baby let out a cry so sharp, so piercing, it cut through the night like a bell. Every man outside turned his head toward the sound. The cry of the baby pierced the swamp night like a bell tolling doom. For a heartbeat, all sound outside stilled, hooves shifting. Men muttering. Caleb's voice cut short. The silence was worse than the shout. Addie held her breath, one hand over the child's back, feeling its tiny lungs press against her palm. Ruth's hand hovered at the latch, eyes locked on Addie. You sure? Ruth whispered. Addie nodded once. Better I speak than let him bury the truth alive. The latch lifted with a groan, and the door swung open. Lanterns and torches threw the night into jagged shadows. The men gathered in a half circle before the canal house, mud up to their boots, fear and anger mixing in their eyes. Caleb stood in front, lantern high, beard silvered, face worn but steady. Samuel was a step behind him, Dugan at his shoulder, both men stiff as drawn bows. Addie stepped out barefoot, the baby tight in her arms, Ruth at her side. Eli limped behind, pale with blood loss. Lydia stayed inside, too weak to move, her shadow trembling on the wall. Here I am, Addie said, voice carrying despite the tremor in her chest. Here's the child you're so desperate to claim, or to kill. But I won't hide, and I won't hand him over. Not to lies, not to silence. The crowd of men shifted, uneasy. Some looked at Caleb, some at Samuel, none at her. Samuel's mouth curled into a sneer. You expect us to believe this child just appeared in your arms? That you didn't shame yourself and then spin a tale to save your skin? Addie lifted her chin. If I lied, it'd be easier to keep quiet. But the truth is heavier than silence. And I won't let it drown me. Caleb's voice cut through. Whose child is it, girl? Say it plain. The whole marsh seemed to lean toward her. The baby whimpered, and Addie rocked it once, steadying her own breath. It's Lydia Hargroves, she said loud enough for every man to hear. She birthed him in the barn 2 nights back, alone. And Samuel Pierce would rather see her buried than let you know she loved a man you don't approve of. Gasps rippled through the group. Dugan swore under his breath. Caleb's eyes widened, shock flickering across his weathered face. Samuel barked a laugh, sharp and bitter. A bold tale, girl. And who fed it to you? That drunk bleeding behind you. Eli straightened, wincing. I saw it myself. I brought her water. I seen her near die. And I seen you, Samuel, with your hounds sniffing after her, threatening to cast her out. Samuel's face twisted. Lies from a half-wit and a girl no man will claim. And you, Caleb, you'll take their word over mine. But Caleb was staring at the baby, then at Addie, then at Samuel. His silence was worse than any accusation. From inside, weak but clear, came Lydia's cry. No lies. It's mine. The crowd stiffened, eyes snapping to the dark doorway. Slowly Lydia appeared, supported by Ruth, face pale as bone but eyes burning. She leaned on the doorframe, sweat slick on her brow. I carried him. I bled for him. And I loved the man who gave him to me. Isaiah Cole, preacher from the revival. If you'll call that sin, then call it mine, not Addie's. The silence shattered into shouts, shock, anger, fear. Some cursed Lydia. Others muttered about Samuel. Caleb raised his hand, but the noise kept rolling, a storm too big to stop. Samuel stepped forward, torchlight hard on his face. You hear her. Madness. Fever talk. The girl's lost her wit, and if she hadn't, she'd know this valley won't stand for a black man's seed raised under its roof. His words cut, sharp as a whip, but they landed wrong. Men shifted uneasily. Some lowered their eyes, others stared at him, not Addie. Ruth's voice sliced the air. You'd kill an infant for the crime of breathing. You'd bury truth to keep your name clean. Samuel's jaw clenched. I'd do what must be done. Caleb stepped forward, his lantern high, his voice iron. What must be done, Samuel, is not your decision to make. You've hidden, threatened, lied, and now the truth's out. This council will hear Lydia, not your poison. Samuel's face flushed dark, his mask slipping. He lunged, hand on his pistol. Dugan moved too, reaching for his knife. But Addie was faster than her fear. She stepped back into the doorway, shielding the baby with her whole body. You'll shoot me first, she said, voice raw but steady. The crowd froze, the torchlight wavered, and in that moment, Caleb's hand clamped down on Samuel's wrist. Enough, he growled. You've shown your hand. This valley won't be ruled by fear. Samuel struggled once, twice, then stilled, chest heaving. By the time the first light bled over the horizon, Samuel was bound, Dugan disarmed, and Caleb's word was law. Again, Lydia was carried back under Ruth's care. Eli limping at her side, and Addie barefoot exhausted, the baby still cradled in her arms, walked back into the valley with every eye on her. Some still doubted, some still hated, but none could deny what they had seen. One girl standing against a man who thought himself untouchable. That night when Addie finally laid the baby in a cradle Ruth had found, she stood in the quiet and let the weight fall from her shoulders. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, if the valley would ever forgive, if it would ever change, but she knew this, the child lived, the truth breathed, and for the first time in her life, Addie wasn't just the girl at the edge of the settlement, she was the voice that had broken its silence.